Hi guys, it's Big Nate here. Welcome to my chronicle, and today we are talking about Star Trek Section 31. Let's get into it. Star Trek Section 31 is a paint-by-numbers slog that holds none of the charm of New Trek but all of the baggage while fundamentally misunderstanding its own canon. The humour falls flat, and the action is as unimaginative as it is pedestrian. The sets look like cheap remakes of other sets that have been reused over and over and over again. One in particular, the Space Station's nightclub, looks like a cheap redress of the Star Wars Hotel. I don't need to tell you how badly that thing flopped. But it is the costume design that fails the most. I have seen first-year cosplay armor that looked more realistic and more imaginative. And the music suffers from the same jazzy, pedantic pointlessness as Star Trek's Discovery's soundtrack, with none of the attempt at emotion. The story itself follows Section 31 as they try to stop a superweapon from being sold on the black market through Emperor Giorgio's station. Originally, the team was going to take Giorgio out and steal the case in a convoluted sequence that would have been just as boring as this entire show. But things don't go as planned when it is revealed that the weapon is a Terran Empire design that Giorgio herself ordered destroyed. The cast are Omar Hardwick as Agent Arlok Sahar, Sam Richardson as the Changeling Quasi, Robert Kaczynski as the Cyborg Zeph, Casey Roll as the Stick in the Mud and By the Book, soon-to-be Captain Rachel Garrett. We have Humberly Gonzalez as the Delphin Melly and Sven Roygok as Fuzz. This film, like all of Alex Kurtzman's version of Star Trek, has failed to even reach the low end of the bar. We have visuals shown in the beginning of this film that do not match up to the audio that is being explained to us via the control of Section 31. They say Starfleet has this big orange line it's not allowed to cross. Fair enough, but your visuals didn't show that. Your visuals quite clearly show Starbase 11, Starbase 13, Mazar, Trill, and Vega, all Starfleet colonies or Starfleet world, Starfleet members, all of them over the orange line. And they are highlighted and coloured in blue, showing that they are Federation property, as what the rest of the map shows. Everything in blue with blue dots, Federation. Everything orange with orange dots is Cardassian. Everything red with yellow dots is Klingon. Everything green with white dots is Romulan. Your audio and your visual is not matching to tell this story, Mr. Kurtzman. And I would think a man who has been paid as highly as you're being reported of being paid would have 5 minutes in his day to check to make sure everything is supposed to be where it's supposed to be. We have a map of the Cardassian Union that doesn't show Bajor. That is the first time I've ever seen that. And to continue this annoying trend, we have a character here introduced that is a Charon. The Charon people, according to Star Trek, the original series, are extinct. And they detailed that extinction in the episode where they first appeared. To introduce them back in now completely undermines the whole point of that episode. That racism destroys everything that it touches. To have one of them back around here, being a concierge at a black market nightclub, completely undermines the whole point of that story. There was two left and they were so controlled by their own racism, so completely compelled by it to annihilate each other that they abandoned even thinking about not even killing each other to go back to their homeworld and fight to the death in the ruins and ashes of their home planet. It just feels ridiculous that they would even include this character here as a, hey, look guys, look what we got here. It's a Charon. Not all of them die, because the point of that story was racism is bad, and we like racism in New Trek. And speaking of the concierge, let's actually talk about this nightclub that they've got set here. Does it sound familiar to any of you? A nightclub in the Badlands of the galaxy run by a pirate queen who sits in a nightclub all day and commits black market deals and mercenary jobs for every Tom, Dick and Harry that needs it for a price and that no one messes with? That's right. It's Aria from Mass Effect 2. The entirety of this bar seems like they've lifted Omega from Mass Effect and plonked it down in Star Trek, added a superficial paint job and randomly coloured aliens with costume designs like they've taken them from the cheap seats and the cheap sections of prop houses, painted people random colours and said, behold, Star Trek's version of Omega, this unknown and unnamed station. It's not interesting, it's generic, it's schlock, but not the good kind of schlock. It's not fun, it's not interesting, it just is. And Star Trek should always be interesting, or at least attempting to be it. Quarks had more atmosphere than this place, and that was a tiny little nook in Deep Space Nine. This entire section is just ripped almost one for one from Mass Effect, and it isn't good. And speaking of costuming, let's talk about Zeph's armor for a minute, shall we? This armor looks worse than a first-year cosplay attempt at Mass Effect armor or Iron Man armor. The design doesn't seem to make sense. There are pieces on there that just seem to be glued on there to be on there. It just doesn't feel technologically advanced enough to be in Star Trek, nor does it feel primitive enough to be something you'd see in House of the Dragon. It's in this middling little area, and it just feels there. There's no design to it. It's just taking up space. Like, were they to have someone who was inspired by armor designs from, say, Iron Man, armor designs from Chronicles of Riddick, armor designs from, let's say, Star Trek itself with the Hirogen, or the Borg, or the Klingons, you could have had something really interesting here. Something that was toyetic enough that you could sell action figures of, but adult enough that you wouldn't need to kidify it. But no, we got this terrible excuse for a cosplay suit. And it just looks cheap and flimsy and rubbery. It doesn't feel metallic. It doesn't feel hard or tough. It feels flexible and soft. And that's not something I want in exoskeleton armor. It's not something anyone really wants in exoskeleton armor. You can be soft in places to allow for movement, but you need to have hard areas that look like they're metal, and nothing on that guy's suit looked like metal. It was a bad design in a bad show, and it shows how just last minute or how little they cared to do something interesting with this character. And speaking of design on this series, let's talk about the ships. None of these ships look Star Trek. None of them. Not the Section 31 ship they use as their own personal runaround, not the garbage scow they have later on, and not Sans' Terran Imperial ship. None of them look Star Trek. It's generic. It's plain. It is boring. Star Trek has an aesthetic that none of the ships here met. Sans' ship, the one he was puttering around on at the end of the film, that looked more Scarran than Terran. It looked more Narn than human. It looked like something from somewhere else brought in, but not the somewhere else that humans were running. It looked like an alien ship from a Alien of the Week. It didn't look good. It didn't look intimidating. It was sharp angles. It was like having a Countach as a spaceship. Would you take a Countach into battle? I know I wouldn't. I'd want something much more sturdy. The garbage scow, the entire concept of this garbage scow is redundant. Everything in Starfleet and Star Trek is recyclable. Even the Klingons recycle. You've never been to a Klingon junkyard, have you? Every ship that gets broken up gets sent to somewhere where they get taken apart and things are put in the matter converter to become something else. There's no waste in Star Trek. And yet here we have another example of Kurtzman not understanding the universe he is in. Even if this is pre-mass production of the replicator technology, Starfleet still had synthesizers that did the same job. There's no excuse for this kind of lazy writing. We just wanted a ship there to be there. Why couldn't it have been something recognizable and something that was recognizable to Star Trek? Because this ship doesn't even look like a Malon freighter, and that was the last group of garbage people we knew about who were dumping trash everywhere. Everything in this film is an and then. They meet Giorgio, and then. They go to the mission, and then. Nothing flows, and it is all just and then. It is just bad writing all round. Everything in this film was done better in other films. The heist scene was better in Ocean's 11, was more intelligent and more cogent. The team dynamic was better in Guardians of the Galaxy, even though they're trying to ape Guardians of the Galaxy, they fail to do so. The music is distracting more than it's helping. The cinematography, while in places can be quite beautiful, it seems to sacrifice story for cinematography in those places. The storyline of the betrayed agent is done better in other films like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, like James Bond, like Star Trek itself. When Jean-Luc Picard got captured by the Cardassians, that was a hell of a lot better than this. Star Trek Nemesis was better than this, and that is the worst film Star Trek made, and now this film has taken that crown and is sitting on the throne of mediocrity and boredom quite gleefully because it seemed to steer into that at every opportunity. There is nothing in this film that is redeemable. If you take Star Trek off this film's name, you could have had potentially an alright straight to DVD film, straight to VHS, straight to TV. This did not have to be. They wanted to cash in on Michelle Yeoh's star power. I can understand that. A company has to make money in order to keep being a company. The issue here is that if you continue to do bad story after bad story after bad story, you're throwing good money after bad and you will never recover. Star Trek is in a death spiral. If it doesn't have a hit soon, Star Trek will go away, and it will go away forever, and that will be sad because it is a cultural touchstone of generations. It is the Star Trek fans that saved Star Trek after it was originally cancelled in the 60s. That got us a movie. That movie got us a series of movies that got us a new TV show. That TV show managed to get one successful spin-off, and then another successful spin-off, and then a moderately successful prequel series, all the while interspersed with films. That is the power of the Star Trek fandom, and you've thrown that away, Mr. Kurtzman, with how you've treated Star Trek since you've taken the helm. And that is the entirety of the issue with this series as well. This didn't need to be. You've thrown good money after bad, and you've damaged the Star Trek brand. We Star Trek fans love Star Trek. We loved it as it was, and we love the idea of what it could be. This series does not live up to that love. This series doesn't live up to anything. This series is the single most generic thing I've ever seen with a Star Trek logo on it. A spy movie that isn't about spies, a heist movie that fails the heist, an action movie that fails in action, and a thriller that has no thrill. Congratulations, sir. You've given birth to generic schlock that nobody likes. I hope that when they take the franchise off you, there's enough of us fans left that the series can be brought back to some semblance of order. My final rating for Star Trek Section 31 is 1 star out of 5. If you want to watch it, Paramount Plus is there. You can watch it yourself. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what I did good. Tell me what I did bad. It all helps with the algorithm. I will catch you down that road. Big Nate, out.